Crawford hits a high drive to right. Did he clear the bases? Out of here.
Well, that's got to feel really good for Brandon Crawford.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Put On Waivers Podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Jeff Young, who's going to be our guest today. I am podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. Like I said, our guest is Jeff Young. He is on, if you can catch him on his writing on Fansided at fansided on Twitter. Also, around the Foghorn, and then he's also a Dubs fan and a Niners fan and a Sharks fan. But we're here to talk San Francisco Giants baseball here on the Put On Waivers podcast. I know on this channel we usually talk USC football, usually talk Raiders, but today my first love is baseball, so we got to talk a little baseball today. Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Dwayne. Thanks for having me on this show. Great to chat baseball with you.
Yeah, and I can tell you, let me get your Twitter handle out there. It's Baseball Jeff 1 on Twitter. You're one of the guys who is really people who don't have like the time to kind of like maybe check in with the minor leagues and all that stuff like that. Everything Giants and all things baseball, you really do a good job of like kind of keeping everybody alert on what's going on. So I definitely appreciate you, and I think baseball fans and Giants fans definitely find you a good follow.
Thank you. That's very kind.
So when Faid Zaid took over, and I can never say his name right, and he brought in Gabe Kepler, can you say can you go back to that in your head and say to yourself, what were you thinking when that happened? Because I know I have my sister married a Phillies fan, so he was just like, so he texted me good luck immediately when we hired Gabe Kepler. But what are your thoughts about Kepler right now, and what this new regime is doing with the Giants from day one till now?
Yeah, I mean, when they first hired Kepler, I mean, there was like kind of not a great first impression, just given how the Phillies performed when he was the manager, and some of the issues that he had with managing the bullpen, and more importantly, managing some of the players that were on the roster. He had a bunch of kind of not run-ins with players, but there were players who it didn't feel like he had control of his clubhouse when he was with Philadelphia. Now he came over to the Giants, and they might have a more kind of professional veteran leadership team. So I think he was, coming into a better situation in that regard. But yeah, there was definitely there was more questions than answers when the Giants originally brought in Kepler. He also had some baggage with his time with the Dodgers as well, and that was something that was brought up during the press conference. So there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of people who weren't the biggest fan of his, to be honest. And then from my perspective, I just wanted to see how he, I just wanted to see how he performed. It was just kind of like wait to see. I didn't, I know how his tenure with Philadelphia went. I just wanted to see, maybe a change of scenery might have helped. And so far that's been the case. He brought in a pretty young and inexperienced coaching staff, and that was kind of an interesting way to start his Giants tenure, bringing in hitting coaches who were very light on coaching experience, pitching coaches who knew about the analytics but didn't have the resume necessarily to back it up that teams typically have. I mean, if you go back to the Bruce Bochy led Giants team, they had very tenured coaches with guys like Dave Getty, who was the pitching coach for years and years, and Ron Rodas, who was the third base coach and bench coach, and he was also a third base coach with through the first 2 years of Gabe Kepler's tenure. So I mean, I think the return's been pretty promising so far. Obviously, they got pretty close to making the playoffs in 2020. They did make the playoffs in 2021 in a pretty historic season, and they're off to a pretty decent start this year, especially considering how many injuries they've had.
Yeah, a lot. And I think, the fact that the Phillies are on another manager already, maybe it's not the manager.
Sure.
Just putting that out there. Maybe it's a possibility. And you talking about the staff he brought in. There's a lot of young, and I follow a couple of them, and it's just like they're really, it's just like almost like a young staff. I felt like I should have applied, as far as that goes. But like, I mean, they immediately got the respect of the players, because I mean, you're seeing. I remember the Giants used to never, but last year's Bochy, they used to get out homered a whole lot. They didn't.
Yeah.
They weren't able to get the ball over the fence to the point where they were talking about and bringing the fences in. But like now with the new staff and with the way they teach it, I mean, you got Vossler hitting 4 home runs and people hit. I mean, it just people are hitting. I mean, what kind of player is Yastrzemski now? Like he's just like just a pound for pound, just a really good home run hitter, and you can always count on him to bring in that sac fly with somebody on third base. Any more thoughts about that part of it? I mean, because it's just really a unique. Because I think the Giants have more coaches than any team in baseball, right? They have a lot of coaches on that staff.
Yeah, I think I don't know what the exact number is right now, but I think they had like 13 coaches at one point, and some of them were like quality assurance coaches. They had 3 hitting coaches. They had multiple pitching coaches, a bench coach. I mean, and some like health and fitness coaches. So they had a pretty large staff, and with that, a lot of different voices. But I think it helps that there was a lot of buy-in from the get-go with the Giants. I mean, the results they were pretty much came right away with guys like Brandon Belt, who really went on a tear to start 2020 and hasn't really slowed down when he's been on the field. And then Brendan Crawford had a MVP type season. Mike Yastrzemski has gotten better. I mean, there's just a lot of there was plenty of buy-in, and there was there are a lot of guys who have just performed better than expected at this point in their career.
Yeah, no question about it. We're on with Jeff Young is a San Francisco Giants writer, and tweets all things San Francisco Giants on Twitter. So you can definitely he's a really good follow. What happened to this defense this year, man? Like, what is going on? They went from 7th, I think they're 15th now. Like, that's probably one of the things that, like, one of the glaring things that, like, kind of from last year to this year that, like, kind of stuck in my head. I was like, what is going on defensively? And some of these fly balls, especially to the outfielder and Oracle have been a little bit adventurous when they didn't really have to be.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is surprisingly for a team that's typically been built on good pitching and good defense. This year, the defense has just not been good by plenty of measures. If you go by defensive runs saved, they're out above average. I mean, the Giants are one of the worst teams in baseball, pretty much every position. So I think some of that is just a product of the injuries, and then some of that is, it's a product of guys like Buster Posey, not being behind point anymore. We've seen that, and we've also been spoiled to an extent to have a guy like Posey behind the plate, because whenever somebody comes in, during his 12-year career, whenever somebody came in after him, the defensive drop-off was almost noticeable right away. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. And it's not really fair to compare anyone to Buster Posey, which is not what I'm doing. But, I think this year there's just a lot of guys who are, there are a lot of injuries. So that's part of it. Steven Duggar was expected to be, the center fielder and getting plenty of at-bats there. And then also if you look at their roster, I think this is a front office that might value defensive experience over defensive acumen, more so than anything else. So I think if somebody has experience in like left field, for example, like, okay, great, we can play him in left field. It doesn't necessarily mean he's a good left fielder, but they're a team that does value versatility as well. So I think, you have guys that are kind of playing out of position, especially when you look at a guy like Wilmer Flores, who's, played at third base this year. But he just doesn't look like he's capable of handling that position with fortunately Evan Longoria's return. But the defense as a whole has been not great this year. And I wonder if part of the issue is, home runs are down to start the year, and there's kind of an added value in putting the ball in play. So I wonder if guys are just hitting away from the shift right now, because it looks like some of it is not just defense, but it's also positioning. So yeah, it's been a little. It's been a big surprise this year to see how much they've struggled defensively, and it's one of those things. If it doesn't get cleaned up, then they're not going to be able to get too far into the playoffs if they make it.
Yeah, we almost didn't have baseball this year. we forget that really. We forget that really quickly once the game started. Are you a guy who wants to see the shift go away, or you want players to say, "Hey, I'm gonna hit away from the shifts. I'm gonna take that. I'm not gonna roll over and try to pull that pitch on the outside part of the plate. If there's no third baseman there, I'm just gonna smack it down the line to take my double." What were your thoughts about the shift?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I like the shift or anything, but I just like the fact that teams are able to strategize and set their defensive alignment however they want, usually based on how the hitter, what his hitting tendencies are. So if he's a pull hitter and you want to put 3 infielders in the pull side of the field, that's fine. I mean, he has that opportunity, that ability to go to the opposite field if he wants to. So that's up to the hitter, but I'm not really in favor of limiting the shift in any way, just because it almost feel, I would think that the outcome would be, more offense, and some of that just wouldn't feel necessarily genuine, because, if a guy gets a hit and you see that it's probably a hit that would have been hit into the shift previously, it kind of feels like, well, I mean, I guess that counts and that's great. It just feels like it's, it's there to, like artificially increase the offense. So, I mean, just let the team set up their defense however they want to.
Yeah, I don't want to see it go away. I want some people to take advantage of that opportunity with the shifts here. The bullpen, 2021 to 2022 is a little bit more. I mean, listen, I can't. It's hard to compare everything to 2021 because we got spoiled. I mean, it was every time they needed a 2-out base hit, they got it. Every time they needed a home run, they got it. I mean, the home run against the Dodgers, basically that we took that I forgot his name, took back away from LA, basically won us the division almost, basically, and if you go back and look at it. But what are your thoughts about the bullpen here? And can they is there names out there? Is it too early to think that the Giants can go out there and trade for somebody?
Yeah, it's going to be tough because for the most part, your bullpen is what it is. It's really hard to improve it mid-season from what I've seen in the past. So it's going to be one of those things where they're going to have to work through it. And, kind of like defense, your team only typically goes as deep into the playoffs as your bullpen lets it. So, I mean, I think they hit a rough patch as a whole, and I think that part's obvious. So they're just, there aren't a ton of reinforcements coming up from the minors that I can think of. Kind of like there was last year, if you compare it to just last year's bullpen. They started the year, they were able to add like Dominic Leone and some of these other guys because they got them on minor league contracts. So they had a little more bullpen depth in the organization than they do right now. A couple of names to be on the lookout for outside of, some of the names we've seen already, like Gregory Santos and Kirby and Castro. They just added a guy named Sam De La Plane to the 40-man roster yesterday. Actually, he was acquired from the Seattle Mariners last year, and very intriguing strikeout numbers. He's performed very well since being drafted in 2017. That's a name to look out for. And then Scott Alexander, he's a local product. He was signed to a minor league deal I think at the beginning of May. Ground ball specialist type of pitcher. I don't know if he's pitched quite yet for the organization, but I know he was signed. So he's probably a name we'll probably see at some point, but they're going to have to make a move at the deadline to bolster the bullpen, because it doesn't look like it's the same bullpen like it was last year. So, I mean, if you're looking at moves that they need to make, I think the bullpen is an area that they'll need to address with at least one or two moves.
Okay. Dying for a young position player to just take the bulls by the horns and just be that everyday player is, I mean, Helio Ramos came up a little bit. Don't know if he's going to be able to do it. Is Luis Gonzalez for real, you think? I mean, I know defensively he's had a little bit of issue out there a little bit, but at the plate, he's been pretty solid and really gives the Giants continuously gives them quality at bats, and he shows some power, especially, you know, that first home run in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, and to your point, it's a little surprising how much he struggled with the glove, because I only saw a few games of him in AAA, and there was nothing to make me think that he couldn't handle all three outfield positions. But like every time there was a ball hit to him right now, I kind of hold my breath, and I don't know what it is, to be honest, but I just feel like what we're seeing is maybe just kind of like a small sample that might be misleading. I feel like he's better than this. He has good speed. His reads aren't that great, but maybe that's something that he can improve upon. But offensively, he's done very nice. And I think one thing that stands out is how good his at-bats are. I mean, he has really good plate discipline. I think he has more kind of on-base ability than what we've seen so far. I think his walk rate is around 7%. In the minors, it was closer to 10 to 11%. So I think as he kind of develops, he should be able to draw a couple more walks and get on base that way. You know, to your point about his power, I think, you know, one thing he does really, really well is he spreads the ball all over the field. He's not a guy you can necessarily shift against.
Yep.
And it's kind of like watching, you know, like I think he's performing in what they hoped that Mike Tauchman would perform last year, and that he's not necessarily a power hitter, but he spreads the ball all over the field. And he's got a nice line drive swing, but you know, some of this is going to be how much power he's going to be able to give the Giants, because you know, he's hitting close to 333 right now. I don't know if that's the most sustainable thing. So he's, you know, it wouldn't be a bad thing if he, you know, I'm trying to think of what the right phrase is. If he finds a way to give the Giants a little more power, even if it's at the expense of a couple more strikeouts, because that's really how he's going to be able to provide value for them. So I mean, it's a nice start so far. He won Rookie of the Month in May. He's looked very good at the plate. He doesn't really look like a rookie at the plate, actually. It's not like the game's going too fast for him. You know, he puts the ball in play a lot, good at bats, and it'd just be nice to see a little more power from him.
Yeah. Biggest question mark you see in the starting staff, and then also in the lineup going right now, because I mean, it's almost, you know, a lot of his injuries, but I don't know what your biggest question marks for starting staff and the lineup are.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like in a rotation, I think Alex Wood is going to be fine by the end of the year, but right now when I watch him pitch, he's just not able to give him any length at all, really. He's only able to go 4 or 5 innings in any one start.
He's giving that he's giving us that Kurt Reeder game.
Yeah. He's not overpowering by any means. He's got a fastball slider combination, and it just feels like once the lineup sees him through the third turn, I mean, he really turns into a different pitcher and is way more hittable. I think hitters are 14 for 29 or something on the third turn through the lineup. So that's a really concerning number, just something to monitor. That doesn't mean he can't give him quality innings. It'd just be nice to see, you know, Gabe Kepler be a little more kind of strict with that. Just because every time the third turn comes up, he gives up a hit or two, and then, you know, he unnecessarily ends up giving up a runner too. And then in the lineup right now, I think, you know, I don't know if there's any big concerns offensively. I think whether it's Kirk Casale or Joey Bart behind the plate, I think they're still going to give them enough offense and abundant in the lineup. But my biggest concern is, the defensive catcher right now. I mean, they're not controlling the running game. They're not really blocking any pitches. I know Joey Bart's doing well in pitch framing, but there's a lot to be desired right now with how the catchers are performing. So I think that's the biggest question mark, and that might be an area that they're going to need to address at the deadline.
Yeah, I'm the only person in my house who's a Giants fan. So everybody else are a Yankee fan. So I used to give him so much crap about Gary Sanchez. So now I'm getting it back. Now I'm getting it back.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of it back now. It's pretty.
Yeah,
it's
pretty full circle.
It's coming full circle. Estrada is just I have, slowly but surely fallen in love with this guy. Like, I mean, honestly, like every time at the plate, I just feel like if it's time to move a runner over, he'll move the runner over. If it's time to get a big hit, he'll surprise you with a home run. When it looked like when we look at the Giants, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble in the eighth, diving play at second base. What are your thoughts about him? Because he's really and like, didn't they find him because Buster Posey just said he might be a good player to add to the roster? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think he played against the Giants in 2019, and Buster Posey liked him, and I guess for anxiety, remember that. And they got him in 2021, in April of 2021, due in part to the fact that they didn't have enough defense at shortstop, and Estrada kind of filled that hole. But yeah, he's looked good situationally. He's a very good hitter because he's got a contact-heavy approach. He uses all fields. Kind of like Luis Gonzalez, it'd be nice to see him, even if the expense is a couple more strikeouts. It'd be nice to see him hit for a little more power. I do think he has more power than what we've seen so far. He has 3 home runs on the year, but he had 7 home runs and like 150 plate appearances in 2021. So I think there is more power in his bat, and he's actually been very good recently. In May, I think he hit like 320 or something. So he's really just been a pretty consistent contributor, and his defense looks like it's gotten better as the season has progressed. Like many infielders or just many fielders in general, it feels like due to the shortened spring training, a lot of people's defense was kind of rusty, and I think his was included. But yeah, he made some nice plays, and he gives the Giants a little versatility. They've used him in left field, they've used him at second base, and he can play third, shortstop, and even right field as well. So he does a lot of things for the Giants. They like his versatility. He's a nice bat to have lower in the lineup, just because he kind of keeps he keeps the offense moving by putting the ball in play. So it's been nice so far to see him, and I think he's done pretty well for the Giants.
Any worries about Crawford?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice that he had a good series. He against the Marlins, he had a grand slam. I think it was on Friday. But right now, if you look at his stats, I mean, there's definitely some reason to be concerned. His exit velocity numbers are down. He's not handling fastballs like he did last year. His ground ball rates are high. These are some kind of red flags to continue monitoring. And, he's just not driving the ball like he was in 2021. And it would have been tough to expect him to kind of put up those numbers again, because, that was by far the best season of his career. So I think there is some cause for concern. But, with Crawford, he's also a pretty durable player. He's always in the lineup. He's rarely ever injured, and he always gives you good defense. So his bat's always going to be in the lineup regardless of whether he's hitting or not. But these are some trends to monitor as the season progresses. We hopefully there are improvements in his ability to handle the fastball, and the exit velocity readings improve too, because generally that means more offensive production.
So I think the last one I want to ask you, and it's about the next offseason. So it was no Chris Bryant. There's rumblings about Aaron Judge. Like, when Stanton was a free agent, the Giants flirted with him. The Giants have been able in the past to get that big fish. You think that is this going to be, they're going to continue to mix and match, or are they hunting for those couple of position players, a couple of position players who can really just they can put out there every day, and then boom, kind of rotate everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be an interesting question. And I think for any of those high-priced free agents, that's going to be an ownership-driven initiative. I mean, if you look at the Giants' attendance numbers in 2022, I think their numbers are down a little bit, even though they won 107 games. And there should be a lot of people at the games, but that just hasn't been the case like we remembered if we go back 5 or 6 years when they were selling out every game. So I think there might be an ownership push to get a guy like Aaron Judge. And, you know, in San Francisco, he's a local guy. I think he grew up in Sacramento or Fresno. I'm kind of blanking on exactly where he grew up, but it was Northern California. So I mean, he would bring a lot of fans to the games, and I think that's something that the Giants ownership is gonna kind of push the front office for. I don't know if that's a move that Anxiety makes. He hasn't really shown us that since he took over the front office 4 years ago. That doesn't mean he's, you know, totally allergic to those types of moves. It just isn't something he's really shown us. I mean, the longest deal he's gone to so far is a 3-year deal with guys like Tommy LaStella and Anthony DeSclafani. So it'd be interesting to see him go from those type of moves to going after a guy like Aaron Judge, who's going to command well over $200 million, you know, in the off season. But, you know, he's just such an impressive hitter that I think that the front office might make an exception. And I think if they do, they're going to have the full ownership support.
I just feel like they need that kind of guy, because the goal is LA. I mean, the Dodgers have the I was joking with a Dodger fan because I'm surrounded by Dodger fans. I'm like, oh, it's a good thing that the the All-Star game this year is in Los Angeles, because every player on the Dodgers is an All-Star, so that's fine. You got to fit right in. So I mean that's the goal. I mean, they had a great job. They did a great job going back and forth with them last year. They have some insight to the organization because of the GM, because of the manager. But they do have to be able to beat that team and then to get to win the West. So it's all about that as far as that goes. All right, Jeff, man, thank you so much for joining us here on the On Waivers podcast. You don't have to even worry about it, because I think the Dubs have this one. No fourth quarter comeback.
Here, I haven't even looked.
Oh yeah, they're this game is pretty much in hand. Nice. So you have to worry about that. One question, I got you a one-liner question.
Yeah, go for it. I don't know if I can answer anything, but I'll try.
Do you want to see Trey play, right? You don't want us to bring Garoppolo back, right?
Oh no, I mean, I like Jimmy Garoppolo the person. I like his leadership ability, but yeah, you know, I think we know, like, Jimmy Garoppolo is a finished product.
Yes, he is.
You know, it feels like Trey Lance. I mean, they invested so much draft capital in him that it just wouldn't make sense for Jimmy Garoppolo to continue starting. You know, like I said, I like him, but I'm pretty excited to see what Trey Lance can do for the Niners this year.
You got it. Yeah. I think that has to happen for them. Maybe we get a Raiders-Niners and then Raiders-Niners Super Bowl this year. That would be crazy.
That would be nuts.
That would be nuts. That's what Greg Papa said is going to happen. So we'll see what happens. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is BaseballJeff1. Happy to always chat baseball. So yeah, just reach out to me and happy to chat baseball.
Cool. Thank you. Take care, man.
Yeah, thanks, Dwayne. I appreciate it.
No problem.